My name is not Erica. That is the first thing you need to understand before I tell you what I did. The woman who walked into Nathan Calloway's life in Savannah, Georgia on a warm October afternoon was not Erica Monroe. She did not exist. I invented her in the parking lot of a Greyhound station with a 9-month-old baby on my hip and a prepaid phone in my pocket and a story I had been rehearsing for 6 weeks. My real name is Serena Voss. I am 31 years old. I grew up in Columbus, Ohio. I was married for 4 years to a man named Daniel. We had a daughter together. Her name is Lily. She was 9 months old when I took her out of our apartment in Columbus on a Tuesday morning and told Daniel I was going to my sister's place in Cincinnati for the weekend. I had no sister in Cincinnati. I had no plan to come back. I am telling you this now because I believe in finishing what you start. I started something with a lie. I am finishing it with the truth. That is the only way I know to earn back the right to exist with my own name again. Let me start at the beginning. Not the Greyhound station. The real beginning. The part where a woman who had everything she was supposed to want started quietly going out of her mind. Daniel Voss was not a bad man. I want to say that clearly because this story is going to make him look like a victim, and in some ways he was. But he was not a villain. He was just a man who believed that love was a thing you built once and then maintained like a piece of furniture. Steady. Predictable. Requiring only occasional attention. He worked at an insurance company in downtown Columbus. He came home at 6:15 every evening. He watched football on Sundays. He was kind to my mother. He never raised his voice at me. He never once gave me a reason to leave. That was almost the problem. I had married Daniel at 26 because he was safe. Because my life before him had not been safe. My father left when I was 11. My mother worked doubles at a diner in Westerville and came home smelling like coffee and exhaustion. I raised my younger brother Marcus for most of high school. I learned early that the world was not reliable and that the only protection from that was to find something solid and hold on. Daniel was solid. I held on. For 3 years it was enough. Then something shifted. I cannot explain it precisely. It was not a single event. It was more like waking up one morning and realizing the room you are in is perfectly comfortable and perfectly quiet and you are suffocating inside it. I loved Daniel the way you love a place you have lived a long time. With habit. With familiarity. With a kind of affection that has lost the edges that make it feel like anything. I got pregnant at 28. Lily arrived in January. She was small and red-faced and she screamed for 3 hours every night for the first 4 months, and I loved her more than I have ever loved anything in my life. She did not fix what was wrong. She made it clearer. Because now I was looking at another 20 years of the same quiet room and I had a daughter watching me live inside it. I met Nathan Calloway online in April. He was 34. He lived in Savannah. He worked on boats. He had a slow southern way of talking that came through even in text messages. He told stories about fishing off Tybee Island at 4 in the morning when the sky was still dark and the water was black and the only sound was the engine. He had never been married. He had no children. He believed in letting things be what they were without forcing them into shapes. He was everything Daniel was not. I knew that was the appeal. I knew it with perfect clarity. I did not stop. We talked every day for 6 weeks. I told him I was single. I told him I was a pediatric nurse in Columbus. I told him I had a younger sister named Lily who sometimes stayed with me. The lie about Lily was the one that would eventually break everything. I was not thinking about that in April. I was thinking about the way Nathan laughed at his own stories before he finished telling them. I was thinking about how it felt to want something again. I made the decision on a Sunday in September. Daniel was watching football. Lily was asleep in the next room. I sat on the bathroom floor with my phone and I looked at Nathan's last message and I made the only completely irrational decision of my adult life. I was going to go. I was going to take Lily. I was going to start over as someone else somewhere warm and full of water, and I was going to make it work by sheer force of wanting it badly enough. I spent 3 weeks planning. I opened a bank account in my maiden name. I withdrew cash slowly from our joint account over several weeks. I told Daniel my sister in Cincinnati needed help after a minor surgery. I packed a bag. I got Lily's car seat. On a Tuesday morning in October I kissed Daniel on the cheek while he was eating breakfast. I walked out to my car. I drove to the Greyhound station on Broad Street. I left my car in the long-term lot. I had a one-way ticket to Atlanta. From Atlanta I would get to Savannah. I sat in the station with Lily in my lap and I looked at my reflection in the darkened window opposite me and I introduced myself to the woman looking back. Hello. My name is Erica Monroe. I am 29. I grew up in Macon. I have a younger sister named Lily who has been in my care for several months because our parents are gone and there is no one else. I practiced it until it felt like breathing. Nathan picked me up at the Savannah bus station on a Thursday evening. He was taller than his photos. He had a short beard and paint-stained work boots, and he hugged me like he had been waiting longer than 6 weeks. He looked at Lily in the carrier on my chest and he said she looked like me, and I said she did, and that was the first time the lie lived outside my own head. I felt it land between us like something real. He took us to his apartment near the river. It was small and warm and smelled like salt water and sawdust. He had put a blanket on the couch for Lily. He had bought a box of animal crackers he had clearly Googled as appropriate for infants and were not, but I did not tell him that. He had thought about us before we arrived. That kindness cracked something in me that I spent the next 3 months trying to keep closed. We settled into something that felt like a life. Nathan worked at the marina during the day. I stayed with Lily. I told him I was looking for nursing work in the area. He never pushed. He introduced me to his friends as Erica. They called me that. They had no reason to question it. I was Erica Monroe from Macon with a baby sister and a fresh start and a quiet way of watching the water. I got good at being her. The first month was almost happy. That is the honest word. Almost. Because underneath every moment was the knowledge of what I had done. Not to Nathan. To Lily. She was 9 months old and she could not ask where her father was, and she could not tell anyone who she really was. I was her mother. I had made her a prop in my own disappearing act. I knew that. I did not know how to undo it. So I kept going. Daniel started looking for me in the 2nd week. He filed a missing persons report. He called every person we knew. He called my mother, who called Marcus, who called Daniel back to say he had not heard from me either. The Columbus police opened a case. They found my car at the Greyhound station. They pulled the ticket records. They knew I had gone south. They did not know where south ended. I followed the news online with a disposable email address. I watched Daniel's Facebook page go from concerned posts to desperate ones. He put up Lily's photo. He put up mine. Missing mother and daughter from Columbus, Ohio. He wrote about Lily in a way that made me turn the phone face down on the kitchen table and sit there in Nathan's small warm kitchen until the feeling passed. The feeling did not pass. It got heavier. Nathan never saw me cry about it. I was careful. I got very good at being careful. I was careful about my phone. I was careful about which stores I went into. I paid cash for everything. I did not open any accounts in my real name. I was building a life out of borrowed materials, and I knew how temporary it all was, and I kept building anyway because stopping meant facing what I had done, and I was not ready for that. 3 months and Nathan told me he loved me. He said it on the dock behind the marina at sunset. He said it the way people say things they have been holding for a while. Simply. Without performance. I looked at him in the orange light over the water and I thought about what it would mean to say it back and mean it, and the weight of everything I was hiding made it impossible to breathe. I said I loved him too. I believed it was true. It might have been. But a true thing said inside a lie is still part of the lie. Daniel found me on a Thursday in January. I do not know exactly how. Months later the full story came out. A woman at the grocery store near Nathan's apartment had seen my photo on a shared Facebook post. She was from Columbus originally. She recognized me. She called Daniel. He drove 17 hours straight from Columbus to Savannah with my mother in the passenger seat and a printout of my grocery store photo on the dashboard. I was at the marina with Lily when I saw his truck pull up. I knew it was over. I knew it the way you know something has ended before the final thing happens. The way you feel a door closing before you hear it. I watched him get out of the truck. I watched my mother get out. They walked toward me across the parking lot and Lily was on my hip and I stood there in the January sun with everything I had built dissolving around me. Daniel did not shout. He was too tired for that. He said Serena. Just my name. In the voice of a man who has driven 17 hours and cried most of them. My mother said nothing. She looked at Lily. Her face did something I do not have words for. Nathan was inside the marina office. He came out when he heard voices. He looked at Daniel. He looked at my mother. He looked at me. He said Erica? And Daniel said her name is Serena. Her name is Serena Voss and she is my wife and that baby is my daughter. I did not deny it. Not to Daniel. I was done. But something in me seized up when Nathan looked at me. He was waiting. He was giving me a moment to explain that this was a mistake. That these people were wrong. I had 3 months of his life in my hands and he was waiting for me to tell him it was real. I looked at him and I thought about all the things I had taken from him without asking. His time. His trust. The version of a future he had started to let himself imagine. I thought about the animal crackers he had Googled. I said, Nathan, I am so sorry. Everything I told you about who I am was a lie. My name is Serena. This is my husband. This is our daughter. He left without a word. He walked back into the marina and the door closed behind him and I never saw him again. What happened next was not a single moment. It was a long series of moments that I am still living inside. Daniel and my mother took Lily. They drove back to Columbus that afternoon. I sat in Nathan's parking lot alone for 2 hours. Then a Chatham County Sheriff's deputy arrived and I was transported to the county jail and processed on charges that included custodial interference and filing a false identity report. My mother hired me an attorney in Savannah named Patricia Wren. Patricia was 61 years old and had the particular patience of a woman who has heard every version of a mistake a person can make. She did not tell me I had done anything understandable. She told me the truth about what I was facing and then she told me what we were going to do about it. The charges were serious. Custodial interference in Georgia is a felony when the child is taken across state lines. I had also used a false name with local authorities when Nathan's neighbor had called a wellness check on the apartment 2 months earlier and I had told the responding officer my name was Erica Monroe. That compounded things. The negotiation took 4 months. Patricia worked with the Fulton County DA and the Columbus prosecutor. I agreed to a plea that included 3 years of supervised probation, mandatory family counseling, and relinquishment of primary custody to Daniel pending a full family court evaluation. I did not fight the custody terms. I had no ground to stand on and I knew it. More than that. I had looked at what I had done to Lily and I knew that the most honest thing I could offer her was cooperation. Daniel did not speak to me for 8 months after Savannah. That was his right. I called once a week to ask about Lily. He put my mother on the phone. She told me Lily was eating well. That she had started pulling herself up on the furniture. That she laughed at the dog next door through the window. My mother did not editorialize. She just told me the facts. I was grateful for that. Nathan gave a statement to the Chatham County investigator. He was thorough. He answered every question. He was not cruel about it. He described me accurately. He described Erica Monroe accurately. He said she was warm and she was good with the baby and she seemed like someone who was running from something she had not yet named. I read his statement months later in Patricia's office and I sat with it for a long time. He had seen more of me than I had let myself see. The family court evaluation took 6 months. A court-appointed evaluator named Dr. Simmons interviewed Daniel, interviewed me, interviewed my mother, and observed Lily in 2 different environments. She submitted a 40-page report. I have not read all of it. The parts Patricia summarized for me were accurate and fair and painful. The evaluation confirmed that Lily was attached to both her parents. It confirmed that Daniel was a capable and stable primary caregiver. It recommended that I be granted supervised visitation on a graduated schedule pending demonstrated compliance with the terms of my probation. I have complied with every term. I go to counseling every Wednesday morning. I attend a co-parenting class on Thursday evenings in a church basement in Westerville where 6 other people and I sit in folding chairs and talk about how to be parents without using our children as instruments of our own pain. My counselor is a woman named Dr. Angela Reeves. She does not let me off the hook. I have needed that. I see Lily on Saturday afternoons. We go to the park near my mother's house. She runs to me when she sees me now. She is 2.5 and she has Daniel's eyes and my laugh and she does not know what happened and she will not until she is old enough to understand it. I am preparing for that conversation every day. I am trying to make sure that when it comes I am someone she can believe. Daniel remarried last spring. Her name is Joanne. She is an elementary school teacher. She sends me photos of Lily on holidays. I did not ask her to do that. She started doing it on her own. I think it is an act of extraordinary generosity and I have not found a way to tell her that without it sounding inadequate. So I just say thank you. Every time. What happened to me in Savannah was not something that happened to me. I need to be clear about that. It was something I did. The circumstances that led to it were real. The suffocation was real. The wanting was real. None of that is justification. There is no version of this story where what I did to Daniel or to Lily or to Nathan Calloway was acceptable. I took a 9-month-old child out of her home and away from her father because I could not figure out how to live honestly inside the life I had built. I dressed my own crisis in someone else's name and asked other people to live inside the fiction with me. I am not telling you this because I want sympathy. I am telling you this because the lie cost more than I knew how to calculate when I was sitting on that bathroom floor in September deciding to disappear. It cost Daniel years of peace. It cost Nathan something he had offered in good faith. It cost Lily a year of her life when her parents were in the same room and neither of them was whole. It cost me my name. And putting my own name back on takes longer than I expected. Some days I am still looking for it. My name is Serena Voss. I am from Columbus, Ohio. I have a daughter named Lily who runs to me at the park on Saturday afternoons. I am not who I was. I am not yet who I intend to be. I am somewhere in between and I am doing the work. That is the whole truth. All of it. And it is mine. I want to tell you about Columbus in February because that is where everything started. Not online. Not with Nathan. With a Tuesday morning in February when Lily was 3 months old. Daniel had already left for work. Lily was asleep in the bassinet. The apartment was clean. The dishes were done. The laundry was folded. The refrigerator was stocked because I had ordered groceries online the night before during the 2 a.m. feeding. Everything was in its place. Everything was handled. I stood in the kitchen in my robe and I looked at the window and I watched a pigeon on the ledge outside rearrange its feathers for about 40 seconds. Then I sat down on the kitchen floor. I was not crying. I was not panicked. I was just sitting on the floor looking at the underside of the kitchen table. Lily was asleep. The apartment was clean. The groceries were stocked. There was nothing wrong. I sat there for 20 minutes and could not name a single thing I wanted. Not from that day. Not from that year. Not from the next 20 years that I could see laid out ahead of me in their clean, predictable sequence. I got up. I made coffee. I did not tell Daniel about the floor when he came home. That was February. By April I was talking to Nathan every day. I need to tell you about my marriage more honestly than I have. Because the easy version of this story is that I was trapped and I escaped. The true version is more uncomfortable than that. Daniel was a good husband by most measures. He was present. He was employed. He was faithful. He remembered my mother's birthday. He took Lily at 3 in the morning without being asked when I was too exhausted to stand. He was not the problem. The problem was me. I had married safety because I needed it at 26. By 31 I had outgrown the need but not the marriage. I had changed and I did not know how to say so. So I said nothing. I kept the apartment clean and the groceries stocked and I sat on the kitchen floor on Tuesday mornings while my daughter slept and I became someone Daniel did not know was disappearing. I should have gone to counseling. I know that. I knew it then. I talked myself out of it every time I got close. I told myself it was just new mother exhaustion. That it would pass. That asking for help meant admitting I was failing at the life I had chosen. I had been the responsible one since I was 11 years old. Asking for help was not in my catalog. So instead I answered Nathan's first message in April. He had commented on a nursing forum I posted in. Something funny and specific. I responded. He responded back. By the end of the first week we were messaging outside the forum. By the end of the second week we were talking every evening after Lily went to sleep. I sat in the darkened kitchen with my phone and I talked to a man in Savannah about boats and water and a kind of life that felt like air. I told myself it was harmless. People talk. People make online friends. This was nothing. This was just conversation. I knew it was not just conversation. I kept going anyway. The name came to me while I was doing laundry. Erica Monroe. I do not know where Monroe came from. It just appeared. I tried it out in my head while I folded Daniel's shirts. Erica Monroe from Macon. Pediatric nurse. Single. No complicated history. No apartment in Columbus. No kitchen floor in February. I folded the shirts very neatly and I thought about Erica Monroe for the rest of the afternoon. By September she had her own backstory. She had grown up in central Georgia with parents who had passed young. She had one younger sister named Lily who she had taken in. She was practical. Self-sufficient. She did not need much. She was good at finding the simple version of things. I built her carefully over the weeks before I left. I thought about every question Nathan might ask and I prepared Erica's answers. It was meticulous work. The kind of planning I was good at. I had been managing complex logistics since I was a teenager. I applied those same skills to inventing myself. What I did not plan for was that Erica would feel more honest than Serena had in years. That is the part that is hardest to explain. I was lying about my name. I was lying about my daughter. I was lying about every factual detail of my life. But the way Erica talked to Nathan. The things she found funny. The things that moved her. The way she sat on his dock in the dark and felt the water move under the boards. Those were real. That was me. The most truthful version of me that had existed in years was wearing a borrowed name. I did not know what to do with that. So I kept wearing it. Nathan's apartment building was 3 blocks from the river. On weekend mornings when the weather was mild you could smell the salt from the bed. I had not grown up near water. Columbus is flat and landlocked and the rivers there are the kind you drive over without thinking about. Savannah was different. Savannah had weight. The Spanish moss on the oak trees. The way the heat settled different than Ohio heat. The squares downtown where people sat under old trees and seemed in no particular hurry to be anywhere. I walked those squares with Lily in the stroller on weekday mornings while Nathan was at the marina. I bought coffee at a place on Jones Street where the owner knew my order by the 3rd week. She called me Erica. She gave Lily a piece of shortbread that Lily examined with complete seriousness before putting directly into her ear. The owner laughed. I laughed. It was ordinary. It was real. It was also completely false. Nathan's friends accepted me without question. 2 of them became people I actually liked. There was Marcus who worked at the marine supply store and who argued with Nathan about football with a passion that was completely disproportionate to the stakes. There was Deja, who was a paramedic and who brought food over every time she worked a hard shift because she said feeding people was the only thing that reset her. Deja held Lily sometimes on Sunday evenings. She was careful with her the way people are careful with things they know are not entirely theirs to hold. I think about Deja sometimes. She was kind to me without knowing who I was. She offered that kindness to Erica Monroe from Macon. I took it. It was one more thing I took that was not mine. Nathan and I had conversations in those months that I still return to. He talked about his father, who had built wooden boats by hand in a shop outside Beaufort, South Carolina, and who had died before Nathan could work alongside him as an adult. He talked about that loss with the particular precision of someone who has spent years understanding it. He said the hardest part was not losing the man. It was losing the version of himself he had expected to become with that man watching. He said some losses are really the loss of a future you were counting on. I understood that more than I told him. He asked me once about my parents. Erica's parents. I had given them names in my preparation. I had given them a house in Macon and a car accident on I-75 3 years earlier. I told the story with the fluency of something rehearsed, and Nathan listened with his full attention the way he always did, and when I finished he reached across the table and put his hand on mine and said he was sorry, and I felt the full weight of what I was doing. I was feeding someone else's grief into a story that did not exist. I was letting him feel something real about something false. I excused myself and went to the bathroom and stood over the sink for a few minutes. I came back. I kept going. I followed the search from a distance. That is the strangest part of what those months were. I was in Savannah living as Erica Monroe and simultaneously watching from the outside as Serena Voss became a missing persons case. Daniel's Facebook post started formally. He wrote that he was looking for his wife and daughter. He gave a tip line. He shared photos. He was measured in the early weeks. I could see the effort of that. Daniel was not a dramatic person. He did not perform emotion. The measured quality of those early posts was him trying to stay functional. By December the posts had changed. He was not measured anymore. He wrote about Lily's first Christmas without her father. He wrote that he had bought her a small stuffed elephant because she had grabbed at one in a store the month before. He wrote that he had put it under a tree and taken a photo. He said he hoped wherever they were safe. I read that post at 2 in the morning on the couch in Nathan's apartment with Lily asleep on my chest. She was warm and she smelled like baby shampoo, and I held her a little tighter, and I thought about Daniel alone in our Columbus apartment with a stuffed elephant under a Christmas tree. I did not go back. I am not proud of that. I tell you because it is true. The going back happened because someone saw me. Not because I chose it. I want to be honest about that. I would like to say I woke up one morning in January and chose the truth. What actually happened is the truth caught up to me and I chose not to run from it when it did. That is a smaller and more accurate version of the same story. The Chatham County Jail had 43 women in it the night I was processed. I know the number because I counted them through the common area window while I waited for Patricia Wren to arrive. It took her 2 hours. She walked in with a legal pad and reading glasses and a cup of coffee she had clearly been holding since before she got the call, and she sat across from me and she said, "Tell me everything," and I did. I told her about Columbus and the bathroom floor and the laundry and Erica Monroe. I told her about Nathan and Savannah and the dock at Sunset. I told her about Daniel's Facebook posts and the stuffed elephant. She took notes. She did not react visibly to any of it. At the end she looked at her legal pad and then she looked at me. She said the next thing I was going to do was not defend myself. She said the next thing I was going to do was cooperate completely. She said we were going to give them everything they asked for. She said a jury looks at a woman who runs and hides and lies and they see someone who knew what she was doing was wrong. She said the only way through this was to be precisely as sorry as I actually was. She asked if I was actually sorry. I told her I was not sure yet, but I was working on it. She nodded at that. She said that was honest. She said we would work with honest. Patricia Wren is retired now. I read about her retirement on the website of the Savannah legal aid organization she joined after she stopped taking private clients. The site has a photo of her at a desk with that same serious expression from the jail. I have thought about sending her a card. I have not. Some gratitudes are too large for cards. The counseling was court-ordered first. Then it became something I chose. Dr. Angela Reeves has an office on the second floor of a brick building in Westerville. She has a plant on the windowsill that she has told me twice she cannot keep alive, but that appears to be thriving. She does not let me use the word overwhelmed as a substitute for describing what I actually felt. She says overwhelmed is a door. She wants to know what is behind it. I have spent 2 years figuring out what was behind the door I opened in September when I chose to disappear. What I found was not what I expected. It was not a trapped woman who needed to escape. It was a frightened woman who had spent 20 years being competent and reliable and holding things together for everyone around her, and who did not know how to say I am not okay because she had never been allowed to be not okay. That is not an excuse. I repeat that because I need to. It is not an excuse. It is an explanation. The difference matters. I know what I owe. I know to whom I owe it. I am paying it in the only currency available to me. Time and consistency and showing up at the park on Saturday afternoons and being exactly who I say I am. Lily is 2.5 now. She has started saying full sentences. She tells me about her week in the car on the way to the park with the particular emphasis of a small person who has recently discovered that words can make people pay attention. She tells me about her friend at daycare named Owen who apparently has very strong opinions about which color cups are acceptable. She tells me about the dog next door. She tells me about everything. I listen to every word. There will come a day when she asks about Savannah. When she asks about Erica Monroe. When she asks why. I am preparing for that day not by rehearsing answers but by becoming someone whose answers she can believe. My name is Serena Voss. I am from Columbus, Ohio. I have a daughter who runs to me. I am learning how to stay. That is everything. That is the truth. All of it is mine now. The detective assigned to the case was a woman named Investigator Holloway from the Chatham County Sheriff's Office. She was thorough and unhurried and she had seen enough family cases to approach mine without surprise. Holloway had my Columbus file within 48 hours. She had Daniel's statement. She had Nathan's statement. She had the original missing persons report. She had the wellness check report from November where a responding officer had recorded my name as Erica Monroe. She had a grocery store surveillance photo from a week before Daniel arrived. She had a timeline that was complete in every detail. What she did not have was a custody order to enforce because Daniel and I had never filed for legal separation. Lily was my daughter. I had not been operating under a court order I violated. The charges were constructed carefully from what existed. Investigator Holloway was precise about what could be charged and what could not. She interviewed me twice. Both times with Patricia present. She asked the same questions from different angles the way skilled investigators do. Looking for inconsistencies. I did not give her any because there were none. I told the truth in the same order every time. She asked me once why I had given Lily's real name to Nathan when I had changed everything else. I had told him she was my sister named Lily. The name was unchanged. I told Holloway I did not know. She made a note. I have thought about it since. I think I could not take Lily's name from her. I had taken everything else. Her father. Her home. Her city. Her routine. I had dressed her in someone else's family. I could not make her nameless too. Lily was the one true thing in the whole construction. Holloway nodded when I told her that later. She did not say it was understandable. She just wrote it down. The DNA question came up because Daniel's attorney raised a parentage motion in the family court proceedings. It was not genuinely in question. But the motion was filed and the test was ordered. I complied the same day the order arrived. The results came back in 11 days. Lily was Daniel's daughter without question. The motion was closed. The fact that it had been raised at all told me how damaged the trust was. Not in whether Lily was his. But in whether anything I had said or done could be believed at face value anymore. That damage is something I am paying down slowly. It does not clear quickly. Daniel's mother sent me a letter 6 months after Savannah. She is a woman named Ruth who lives in a small house outside of Chillicothe and who makes ceramic figures of birds as a hobby and who had always been quietly kind to me in the years I was her daughter-in-law. The letter was 2 paragraphs. It said she did not understand what I had done. It said she hoped I would find a way to be a good mother to Lily anyway. It said she was praying for all of us. I have kept that letter in my wallet for 2 years. It is worn at the fold now. Some days it is the thing I am working toward. The version of the future where Ruth's prayer has done some of its work. I think about Nathan Calloway on a regular basis. Not with longing. With something harder to name. He was 34 years old. He had been careful about love because he had been hurt before. He had told me about that in our early conversations. A woman he had been with for 3 years who had left without adequate explanation. He had spent 2 years afterward not trusting his own judgment about people. When he started to trust it again, I was the person he trusted it on. I think about the animal crackers he Googled. I think about the blanket on the couch. I think about the way he said I love you on the dock without any performance. He had decided something. He had walked toward it. He had earned it with months of patience and kindness and full attention. He did not deserve what I gave him in return. There is no version of the accounting where I broke even with Nathan Calloway. I wrote him a letter about 8 months after Savannah. Patricia advised me not to send it. She said it would look self-serving regardless of my intentions. She said the kindest thing I could do for Nathan was to leave him alone. I left him alone. I wrote the letter anyway. I have it in a folder on my desk. It says what I could not say in the parking lot when he walked away. It says I knew what I was taking from him. It says I am sorry for taking it. It says the things that were real between us were real even though everything around them was false. It says I hope he found the dock at 4 in the morning again and that the water was still worth being up for. I do not know if I will ever send it. I do not know if I have the right to. Dr. Reeves asked me last spring what I had learned about myself. It was not a therapy speak question. She meant it practically. She wanted a specific answer. I told her I had learned that I was very good at managing difficulty and very bad at admitting it. That I had built my competence as a shield so thoroughly that I had no language for the moments when the shield was not enough. That I had chosen disappearance over conversation because conversation required me to say I am not okay, and I had been trained since childhood that not okay was not an option. She said that was accurate. She said what I had done in Savannah was an extreme version of something a lot of people do in smaller ways. They change their circumstances instead of changing their relationship to their circumstances. They move. They quit. They end things. They start new ones. I had done the most literal possible version of that. I had become a different person in a different city. She said the work was learning to stay. Learning that staying inside difficulty was survivable. That the room you cannot breathe in can be renovated. That you can say I am not okay to the person across the kitchen table and the world does not end. I am learning that. Slowly. It is slower than I thought it would be. I have been in Columbus for 2 years now. I live in a small apartment in Clintonville. I work part-time at a pediatric clinic on the north side. My supervisor knows the broad outline of what happened. She hired me anyway. I am grateful for that in a way that does not fit inside a regular conversation. On Saturday afternoons I drive to Daniel and Joanne's house in Worthington. I park at the curb. Lily runs down the front walk. She is wearing whatever she is wearing that day. Rain boots sometimes in the wrong season. A hat she has selected herself. She runs with the full body commitment of a toddler who has not yet learned to hold anything back. I catch her. Every time. That is the whole life I am building now. It is not the life I imagined from the bathroom floor in September when I decided to become someone else. It is smaller. It is more honest. It is mine. My name is Serena Voss. I am staying. The plea hearing was on a Wednesday morning in March. The Chatham County Courthouse had high ceilings and old wood and a particular smell of paper and floor wax that I still associate with the specific terror of sitting in a chair in a public room and having your life decided. Patricia sat beside me. Daniel was in the gallery with his attorney from Columbus. My mother was there. She sat in the third row and she had her hands folded in her lap and she did not look at me. I understood. She had driven 17 hours and she was not ready to look at me yet. I did not hold it against her. The prosecutor was a woman named Assistant DA Courtney Price. She was direct and prepared and she spoke about the case in a tone that was neither sympathetic nor hostile. She spoke about Lily. She spoke about the 18 weeks Lily spent away from her father. She spoke about the wellness check report with the false name. She laid out the charges with the particular clarity of someone who has done this many times and understands that clarity is the only honest form of this work. I stood when Patricia told me to stand. I answered the judge's questions with yes sir and no sir. I entered my plea. The judge was a man named Hargrove who had gray hair and reading glasses and who looked at me over those glasses for a moment before he spoke the terms. He said he hoped I understood the seriousness of what I had done. He said he hoped I would use the terms of the agreement constructively. He said the court's primary concern was the welfare of Lily Voss and that everything in the agreement was structured around that concern. I said I understood. He said he hoped so. Patricia walked me out afterward. We stood on the courthouse steps in the March air. She said I had done everything right in there. She said now the work started. She shook my hand. She went back inside. I stood on the steps alone for a minute. The city of Savannah went about its day around me. Tourists on the squares. A trolley on the historic route. 2 college students on bikes. A woman walking a dog so large it was nearly walking her. The city had no opinion about what had just happened in that courtroom. It was just a city. Continuing. I had a flight back to Columbus that afternoon. I had a probation officer to meet the following Monday. I had a counseling appointment on Wednesday. I had a custody hearing scheduled for April. I had a daughter I had not held in 3 months. I had a lot of work to do. I knew how to work. I had been doing it since I was 11 years old. I walked down the courthouse steps. I hailed a cab to the airport. I went home. My brother Marcus was 24 when I disappeared. He was living in an apartment in Hilliard with a roommate named Tyler and working at a distribution center on the west side. He had a car that needed new tires and a gym membership he used 3 times a week and a Tuesday night bowling league he took very seriously. He called me every Sunday. We talked for about 20 minutes each time. He asked about Lily. He asked about work. He asked if Daniel and I were doing okay. I said yes every time. We were fine. Everything was fine. After I left he called Daniel on a Wednesday when he could not reach me. Daniel told him what he knew. Marcus drove to our Columbus apartment that afternoon even though there was nothing there to find. He sat in the parking lot for a while. He told me this later. He said he sat in the parking lot and he thought about every Sunday call for the past year and tried to find the thing he had missed. He said he could not find it. He said that bothered him more than anything else about the whole situation. Marcus is not someone who misses things. He grew up the same way I did. Paying attention because attention was the only resource we had that nobody could take. He paid attention to me every Sunday for a year and he missed it. I told him he did not miss it. I told him I hid it. I told him there is a difference between hiding something and someone failing to find it. He said he understood that but he was going to keep thinking about it anyway. That is Marcus. He is thorough even with things that are done. He came to my first family court appearance. He sat in the gallery 3 rows behind Daniel. He did not speak to Daniel. He did not speak to me before we went in. Afterward he walked out with me to the parking lot and he said one thing. He said you owe Daniel a real conversation, not a legal document. Then he got in his car and drove back to Hilliard. He was right. It took me 8 months to have that conversation. Daniel and I sat in a mediator's office in Dublin, Ohio on a Thursday afternoon in November and I told him the things I had not been able to put in any filing. I told him about the kitchen floor. I told him about February. I told him about the room I could not breathe in. I told him it was not about him. I told him it was about me not knowing how to say that to anyone including myself. He listened. He did not fill the silence when I finished. He sat with it for a while. Then he said he wished I had told him. He said he would have tried. I said I know. He said knowing it now did not change the 18 weeks. I said I know that too. We did not forgive each other that afternoon. Forgiveness is not a Thursday afternoon kind of thing. But we established something. A way of being in the same room without the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on both of us. That was enough to start. Marcus bowled a 268 that Tuesday after the mediation session. He texted me a photo of the score sheet. I texted back a single exclamation point. He sent back 3 bowling pin emojis. That was us returning to normal. Small and specific and exactly right. I did not know what to make of Joanne when Daniel first introduced her. Not because she was wrong for him. Because she was so clearly right for him that it made the years of our marriage look different in hindsight. Joanne teaches 2nd grade at an elementary school in Worthington. She has a way of being in a room that is warm without being loud. She remembers things. She remembered that Lily called her stuffed rabbit bun the first time she heard it and used that name every time after. She noticed that Lily ate the crackers but not the cheese and adjusted accordingly without making it a thing. She kept a spare pair of rain boots in her car in Lily's size because Lily went through a phase of stepping into every puddle she passed. She is the kind of woman who keeps spare rain boots. Daniel needed that. He always needed someone who kept spare rain boots and I was never going to be that person. I am organized about the wrong things. I did not like her at first. That is honest. It had nothing to do with her and everything to do with what she represented, which was the proof that Daniel was better without me than he had been with me. That is a hard thing to sit with. I sat with it in Dr. Reeves' office for about 3 sessions before I could say it out loud. Dr. Reeves said that was a very honest thing to know about yourself. She said most people spend years avoiding that particular piece of information. She said what was I going to do with it? I said I was going to let Lily have Joanne without making it complicated. Dr. Reeves said that was the right answer. It took work. There were Saturdays in the early months when I pulled up to the curb and watched Joanne open the front door and say goodbye to Lily at the end of a visit and I felt something in my chest that was not charitable. I sat with that feeling in the car for a few minutes each time. I did not act on it. I just let it exist and then I drove home. By the following spring I was able to wave at Joanne from the curb without having to sit in the car afterward. By summer I could say thank you when she mentioned that Lily had eaten well that week. By fall I could genuinely mean it. The holiday photo thing started at Thanksgiving. She texted me a photo of Lily in a small paper bag turkey headband that Joanne's class had made as a craft. Lily was holding a piece of cornbread and looking at it with the serious expression she reserves for food she is uncertain about. I laughed out loud at my kitchen table alone. I texted back a laughing emoji and thank you. She said of course. That was all. But it changed something. I think Joanne understands something about the situation that is not easy to understand. That Lily needs both of us. That I am not a threat to what she and Daniel have. That a child having a mother who is trying to get better is not a complication. It is just what is true. She acts on that understanding without discussing it. That kind of grace does not come from nowhere. I have never told her any of this. I am telling it here because it belongs in the full story. 8 months after Savannah I wrote a letter to Nathan. Patricia told me not to send it. I did not send it. But I want to tell you what was in it because it is part of what I learned. The letter started with his name. Just his name. I had written it and crossed it out and written it again 3 times before I left it. Nathan. One word that had two meanings depending on which version of me was writing it. I told him the first true thing, which was that I knew what I had taken from him. Not money. Not property. Not anything that a legal filing could address. I had taken his willingness to open. That is the precise thing I had taken. He had been careful about love. He had told me that. He had opened carefully and deliberately toward someone who did not exist. I told him the second true thing, which was that the things between us that were real regardless of the frame. The dock at 4 in the morning. The animal crackers. The way he said my name, which was not my name. The way he listened. Those things happened. They were not fictional. They existed inside of fiction, but they were not fictional themselves. I told him the third true thing, which was that I was sorry in a way that had no useful action attached to it. I could not give him back what I had taken. I could not undo the months. I could not make his trust and his own judgment return on a schedule. All I could do was say I knew the cost and I was sorry for it. I told him I hoped the water was still worth being up for at 4 in the morning. I sealed the letter. I put it in a folder. It has been in that folder for almost 2 years. Some days I think I should destroy it. Some days I think I should send it. Most days I think Patricia was right, and the most honest thing I can do for Nathan Calloway is stay out of his life completely and let the absence be the apology. I keep the letter because it is what I know how to do. I write things down. I always have. It is how I process the distance between what I did and who I am trying to be. If Nathan reads this one day, I want him to know the animal crackers mattered. The blanket on the couch mattered. He was kind to a woman who did not deserve it under the name she gave him. I have not forgotten that. I do not intend to. She has opinions now. Full and specific opinions about things that could not matter less and that matter enormously to her. She has an opinion about which spoon is the correct spoon. There are apparently several spoons at Daniel's house and only one of them is acceptable. It is the blue one with the slightly bent handle, and if you hand her any other spoon she will look at it in a way that makes you understand she is humoring you. She has an opinion about the order of getting dressed. Socks must come before shoes. This is not a preference. This is a rule. If you attempt shoes before socks, she will remove the shoes and wait. She will not say anything. She will just wait. She has learned that patience is effective. She has an opinion about the park near my mother's house. Specifically about the structure with the climbing wall. She cannot quite reach the top yet. She gets to the same place each time and she considers the remaining distance and she decides not to attempt it. She backs down carefully. She does not ask for help. She will not ask for help. Next week she will come back and try again. I watch her from the bench and I think about the kitchen floor in Columbus and the bathroom mirror and the Greyhound station and the parking lot in Savannah and the courthouse steps and the probation office and the Wednesday mornings in Dr. Reeves' office and all the distance between who I was in September and who I am now. I think about everything it cost to get to this bench. I think about everything it cost Daniel and Nathan and my mother and Marcus. Then Lily backs down carefully from the climbing wall. She turns. She sees me on the bench. She does her full body run across the wood chips with her arms out. I catch her. Every time I catch her. That is the life. That is all of it. The whole complicated true thing. I am not the woman who ran. I am not the woman who was Erica. I am not who I was in that apartment in Columbus. I am something being built from what all of that cost. My name is Serena Voss. I am from Columbus, Ohio. I have a daughter who runs to me on Saturday afternoons with her arms out. I am staying. That is the whole story. I am staying. Every other Monday at 9 in the morning I go to the Corrections Center on Morse Road in Columbus. I sign in at the front desk. I wait in a row of plastic chairs under fluorescent lighting. My probation officer is a man named Gerald Webb. He is 53. He has a plant on his desk that is plastic and that he has placed there with what appears to be ironic intent. Gerald does not treat me like a cautionary tale. He treats me like someone with a specific situation who is required to check in regularly and who is doing so. He reviews my compliance documentation. He notes my counseling attendance. He asks if I have had any contact with Nathan Calloway. I say no. He writes that down. He asks if I have fulfilled my community service hours for the month. I say yes. He writes that down. The whole appointment takes about 12 minutes. I drive home on 270 and I stop at the coffee place on Morse that has a drive-through and I get a medium dark roast. I have done this 31 times now. The person at the window on Tuesday rotation is a young woman named Brianna who has started having my order ready before I reach the window. She does not know what I have done. She just knows my order. That is a small thing. It matters to me. It is a version of normal that I did not expect to get back. The community service is at a women's resource center on the Near East Side. I do intake paperwork 3 mornings a week. I sit across a desk from women who are navigating things I have navigated and things I have not, and I help them fill out forms. I do not offer advice. That is not my place. I hand them forms and I explain what goes in each box and I make sure they have what they need before they leave. I am good at paperwork. I am good at making complicated things manageable in small steps. I have been doing that since I was 11 years old. One morning in the fall, a woman came in with a 7-month-old daughter. The baby was in a carrier on her chest and the woman was trying to fill out a housing assistance form with one hand while the baby slept. I reached across and steadied the form on the table so she could write. She said thank you without looking up. I said of course. The baby slept through the whole appointment. She had a small crease on her cheek from the carrier fabric. I finished helping the woman with her form and I walked back to my desk and I sat down and I looked at my hands for a minute. I thought about Lily at 7 months. The particular weight of her. The way she smelled. The crease she always had on her cheek from the car seat. I went back to work. She asked me in the spring of this year whether I had forgiven myself. We had been working together for almost 2 years at that point and she had not asked that question before. She is careful about timing. I said I did not know if forgiveness was the right frame. I said I understood what I had done and I understood why and I understood that neither of those things was the same as it being acceptable. I said I was not sure a person got to forgive themselves for something that cost other people this much. I said maybe the better frame was accountability that you carry without crushing yourself under it. She said that was a sophisticated answer. She said was it actually how I felt or was it the answer I had constructed because I was not sure I deserved to feel better. I sat with that for a while. We sit with things a lot in her office. The plant on the windowsill does not appear to mind waiting. I said both things were true simultaneously. I had constructed a sophisticated answer and it was also actually how I felt. She said that was possible. She said the two could coexist. She said what did I think I was afraid would happen if I let myself feel like I was going to be okay. I said I was afraid I would stop doing the work. That if I felt okay I would relax into it and stop paying the debt I owed. She said that was an interesting thing to be afraid of. She said did I think the work I was doing was motivated primarily by guilt or by who I wanted to be. I said I thought it had started as guilt and had become something else. I said I thought it had become about Lily. About showing up. About being someone she could reach on Saturday afternoons with her arms out. Dr. Reeves said that sounded like the right motivation. She said guilt was a starting gate, not a destination. She said the destination was exactly what I had described. I drove home from that appointment on a Wednesday afternoon in April. The trees were budding. Columbus in April smells like wet earth and something opening. I drove home without the radio on. I sat in my parking lot for a few minutes when I arrived. I was not on a bathroom floor. I was not in a Greyhound station. I was not in a parking lot in Savannah being seen for the first time under my real name. I was in my own parking lot in my own city on a Wednesday afternoon in April with a probation appointment on Monday and a counseling appointment next Wednesday and a Saturday park visit in 4 days. I went inside. I made dinner. I called my mother. She told me Marcus had bowled a 270. I said that was impressive. She said he was getting worse at pretending it was not a big deal. I laughed. She laughed. We talked for 30 minutes. I went to bed at 10:30. I slept well. That is what recovery looks like on a Wednesday in April. It is not dramatic. It is dinner and a phone call and 30 minutes with your mother and sleeping well. It is not the absence of what happened. It is the presence of what came after. I am building what came after. One Wednesday at a time. The first Saturday I saw Lily after Savannah was in April. She was 13 months old. I had not held her in 3 months. 3 months is a long time in the life of a 13-month-old. She was different. She was walking. Not steadily but walking. She had 4 teeth. She had learned to clap. Patricia had arranged the visit through the family court mediator. It was supervised. A court-appointed family services worker named Ms. Chen sat in a chair near the window of my mother's living room and took notes. My mother sat in the kitchen where she could hear everything. Daniel had agreed to the visit without contest. That was the first generous thing he did. There were more after it. I sat on the living room floor. Ms. Chen told me Lily was on her way in from the car with Daniel. I heard the front door. I heard Daniel say something in the low even voice he uses for Lily. I heard her small feet on the hallway floor. She came around the corner and stopped when she saw me. She looked at me with the serious evaluating expression she gets when she encounters something new. She was holding a board book in one hand. She looked at me for about 4 seconds. Then she walked across the room and sat down in my lap and opened the board book and pointed at a picture of a duck and said a sound that was not the word duck but was clearly intended to be. I said yes. Duck. That is a duck. She turned the page. She pointed at a cow. We read the book 4 times. Miss Chen wrote things in her notebook. My mother made tea in the kitchen and did not come in. Daniel waited in his truck in the driveway. An hour later he knocked on the door and came to get her. She went to him without complaint. She was tired. She leaned against his shoulder and closed her eyes almost immediately. He looked at me over her head. He nodded. I nodded back. He left. I sat on my mother's living room floor for a few minutes after they went. Miss Chen asked if I was all right. I said yes. She said the visit had gone well. She wrote something final in her notebook and said she would file her report with the court and that further visits would be arranged based on that report. I said thank you. She gathered her things. She left. My mother came in from the kitchen. She sat in the chair near the window. We did not say anything for a while. Then she said Lily looks like Marcus did at that age. I said I had not noticed that. She said look next time. The eyes. I said I would. That was the whole conversation. It was enough. My mother and I have always communicated better in small specific observations than in large emotional declarations. We come from a family that showed love by noticing things. She noticed Lily looked like Marcus. That was her way of saying she was still here. That we were still something. I went home. I sat in my apartment. The evening light came through the window at the angle it comes in April. I looked at my hands. I thought about Lily pointing at the duck. I thought about her walking across the room and sitting in my lap like it was just where she was going next. She had not forgotten me in 3 months. I had been afraid of that. That I would be a stranger to her. That the absence would have been its own kind of taking. She sat in my lap and pointed at a duck. She remembered me. That was the whole world on that Saturday in April. That is still the whole world every Saturday now. She runs across the wood chips with her arms out and I catch her, and for that minute everything that happened and everything it cost and everything still being repaired is just the background of a Saturday afternoon at the park. Not gone. Not forgiven. Just background. Real life in the foreground. That is what I am building toward. That is what I am choosing every day. My name is Serena Voss. I am from Columbus, Ohio. I have a daughter who runs to me with her arms out. I am the woman who ran and the woman who came back and the woman who is staying. All of that is true at once. I am learning to hold all of it. That is the whole story. That is everything.